Welcome one and all to Tpull's Corner. Our first opponent is going to be Omega Penguin. And we're on day 4 of the 12 Days of Bloomburrow, and day 4 is going to be lizards. We're choosing a different animal type and just filling our deck full of that particular animal. And when we have the 1-drop, we want to take it. So we don't play our tap land like usual. Actually have some 1-drops for a change. They have a few extra cards. About 10 extra cards or so. 20? 20 extra cards? 30? How many extra cards do you have? Gee whiz. Okay, let's see. We have a 2-drop. I think we go ahead and play that. So here we don't pay the offspring. We're just going to get an early hit in. And if we can keep these around, then maybe Laughing Jasper Flint in the next turn or two will be able to help us turn the tide. Mostly cheap creatures from them to start with. 3-drops. Okay, we can do damage to them already, right? That's a good thing. I attack with this puppy. Do another point of damage. And they block, but they don't know what the claw can do, I guess. They're dead. Froggy's dead. Lizard killed the frog. Whenever you deal damage to target opponent, then you can spend 2 mana and put a +1/+1 counter on the hired claw. Another 3-drop. And they're blue, so you got to give them time to think. Sometimes it helps if you hum the theme song to Jeopardy. Makes the time pass by faster. Here we go. What did we get rid of? Lunar Insight and Steam Core Scholar. Alright. Let's see. Oh, do we want to do that now? No. We'll play the tap land. We'll bring down Laughing Jasper Flint. Pass the turn. That's enough. This is enough of a threat. They need to do something against that now, or we pretty much run away with the game, I think. Okay, now we're going to get to tap into their deck. We don't get their lands, which can happen with other cards that exile stuff from their deck. We can only work with spells. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Okay, so we're going to go with the lizard for 3 Tree City. We can bring down the Hulking Raptor, or whenever you draw your second card. My deck is not really a draw extra cards kind of deck, so we're going to take the Raptor. Don't need to attack. Thanks to Laughing Jasper Flint, Hulking Raptor is now a dinosaur mercenary. Nice little trick. We're still waiting to decide if this wants to become a copy of the Mossborn Hydra or not. It shouldn't be copying Kiora, because Kiora is a legendary creature. It would make them choose which one of the two to keep. So The only thing that it can copy is Mossborn Hydra, but it's not going to copy the counters. It would just make it a 1/1 because Mossborn Hydra comes in as a 1/1. So, or actually a 0/0, but it's got. Let's see, what's the counter that has on it? It's got a +1 counter, so it would become a 1/1 because of the counter. And what you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Anything? Bueller? Okay, we get the top. We get the... Oh, we get Omniscience too? Wow. Okay, we don't have enough for Omniscience. We can do a damage to our opponent. Omniscience is going to go away. Do we want to use a Scavenging Ooze? We've got so many choices here. I feel like we should do that. And then we can do this. And we can choose 2 of them. I think a human creature token and a basic land card. That works. In the meantime, since we did do 1 damage to the opponent, we can pump up the claw. Pass the turn. They lose their Omniscience to exile. We need to power up this exiling creature cards from the graveyard. We need green mana, which we can do with 3 Tree City. So, it might have looked like a bad choice at first, but we do have a way to fix our mana so we can get any color we want. In the meantime, although everything's a mercenary now, even our no, our token's not right. It has to be blah 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 creatures. It didn't specify, but it's non-token creatures. The tokens, they don't get modified. They spent most of their energy to bring that down, so I think we'll use early winter next turn instead of anything that they might have. Alright. Actually, let's just use the green we got. We'll exile some stuff. That works for me. Hero's Bane is pretty cool. See, I'm having such fun using all of my opponent's stuff. But I'm kind of scared of what they might have in their hand. So let's get rid of Railway Brawler. And then we can put down Druid of the Cowl. Don't need to attack just yet. I'm looking at being able to bring down the duos and just fly over their head and kill them that way. See, it's a good thing I exiled the Brawler. That really would have hurt. Notice that they stopped drawing lands. They got to the 6. 6 is all they need for this deck. Unless you count Omniscience, right? And now they can bring stuff in. Well, I've been exiling all their lands, though, so there's no chance that they can put a land card from the graveyard in. So we stopped that, at least. Okay, they had Deep Fathom Echo become a copy of Bonnie Paul, which then became 2 legendary creatures. And we just mentioned earlier, you don't want to do that. And it wasn't necessarily the game was over. Did I have fun in that one? I guess we'll say yes. It wasn't automatically game over for them, but they were losing a lot of their own spells to me. I was basically beating them with their own deck. Alright, Lizards. We just opened a bunch of Bloomburrow packs and we piled a bunch of lizards in here. There's one lizard that's not... Well, there's a couple of lizards from other expansions. The main one is Laughing Jasper Flint. So it's 4/3 legendary lizard rogue. Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries in addition to their other types. At the beginning of your upkeep, you exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control, and then you may cast spells from among those cards, and it doesn't matter what color the mana is of their spells. Any mana that you spend can be used to successfully cast those spells. Normally what you would do with lizards is you would take a look at a creature like this, and he was designed as a lizard originally before Bloomburrow came out, but they knew Bloomburrow was in the pipeline, so they sort of backfilled some of the previous expansions with the same animal types that they were going to make in Bloomburrow, because they worked so far ahead. They're working somewhere between 2 to 7 years ahead, depending on which expansion set we're talking about. And so they absolutely knew, like the last 4 expansion sets before Bloomburrow, that Bloomburrow was going to be the animal set. So they made this a lizard on purpose with Bloomburrow in mind. And this is basically your lizard lord. And normally what you would do is you would get 4 copies and build the entire deck around Laughing Jasper Flint. What I'm doing for just to sort of kick off the new year, to remind everybody, this account is a free-to-play account. It's just, you play Magic every day, you open the packs, you spend your gold in, like quick draft tournaments to add to your collection, and you can get a nice collection. I have a bunch of wild cards saved up. I'm not against burning them now. Originally, for the first couple of years, I didn't burn any of my wild cards. But so if I wanted to, I could burn 3 rare wild cards, get 4 copies of this, and build the deck. Just so you know, this isn't like the maximum damage lizard deck that you could possibly create. I've got 1 copy of Laughing Jasper Flint in my collection. I'm using just the 1 copy of him from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and most of the rest is just going into Bloomburrow and packing lizards into it. And partly that's just to show you what you can do when you're under constraints, and remind you you don't need to drop a buttload of money on the game just to max out everything. It can still work pretty well. So for the rest of the deck, we've got Iridescent Vine Lasher. It's got the Offspring mechanic, which is sort of like a creature kicker. If you have the 2 extra mana, then you also get another 1/1 creature. It's token, but they both have landfall. Whenever land enters, creature deals 1 damage to target opponent. Now, whatever the creature is, whether it's a 5/6 or a 1/2, you're going to get, when you pay the Offspring cost, whatever that Offspring cost is going to be, you're going to get a 1/1 token. But it's still a Lizard Assassin, so don't try and pet it. Ravine Raider, Lizard Rogue, 1/1 with Menace. You can pump it up. This is our Mana Sink card. You can pay 1 into black and give it +1/+1 till end of turn. It's amazing how many times you can still surprise your opponent and just pump it up and have it survive when your opponent thought it was going to trade off. For the Hired Claws, Lizard Mercenary, 1/2. Whenever you attack with 1 or more lizards, Hired Claw deals 1 damage to target opponent. If you do a damage, if your opponent lost life this turn, you can spend 1 in red and give a +1/+1 counter on the Hired Claw. So this is another kind of mini Mana Sink. You can only do it once each turn, but it's really handy to have 2 of these out on the field at the same time. And they don't need to attack you, and you send another lizard to attack and it'll do the damage. A Gateblade Assassin, 1/3. Whenever it attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This is not a lizard, it's a Squirrel Warlock. When I did my first 2 decks, I did rabbits first and then I did raccoons, and I had the frog in there, the Might Caller. And the Might Caller gets the +1/+1 counter whenever a mouse comes in, whenever a rabbit comes in, whenever a frog comes in, whenever a raccoon comes in. So there were synergies, cross-animal synergies. And this is the one that we have here. Whenever the Rock Caller attacks, opponent loses life, you gain life, depending on the number of other creatures that you have. And we have all the rest are lizards, so if we have 3 or 4 lizards, this is going to be a very powerful card. Just 1 copy, so I put it in there. Flame Cash Gecko. Lizard Warlock for 2/2. When it enters, if the opponent lost life this turn, you add a black mana and a red mana. If you want, you can just dump it into the Gecko itself as a Mana Sink. 1 in a red, discard a card and draw a card. Or you could maybe use it to pump up the Hired Claw, for example, or pump up your Ravine Raider. So we've actually got a ton of things to do with our energy. So there's always going to be options. We're going to have to make choices throughout the entire game. But this can also, if this comes out early, you can use it to get an extra creature out really early on. Steampath Charger, Offspring 2, so you can get 2 of them down. When the creature dies, it deals 1 damage to target player. Fireglass Mentor. This is probably the creature I'd drop if I was going to make more Jasper Flints. This is a risky card. It's a 2/1 Warlock, Lizard Warlock, and I don't know why it's only toughness 1, because you're paying 2 different colors, right? A black and a red. You should at least get a 2/2 out of this. I'm not sure why they're skimping on the toughness. But at the beginning of your second main phase, if an opponent lost life this turn, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You can play one of them, but you have to have enough mana to cast the spell. So a lot of times, if you get this out too early and you do damage, which, it's easy, sometimes unintentionally, you might start doing damage before you were prepared for it with this deck. It's just 1 point of damage, that's all it takes. And then you've exiled the top 2 cards of your deck and you can't cast them. And they might have been very useful the next turn. So this is a good card to play later on under controlled circumstances. Gev Scaled Scorch, a Lizard Mercenary Legendary 3/2, but also with Ward 2, where you have to pay 2 life just to target it. Other creatures you control get an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each opponent who lost a life this turn. You notice this is the sort of the mechanic that's involved with the lizards. If an opponent lost life this turn, that's the condition you have to meet for all of these things to happen. I'm not sure why they didn't give it an ability word like they have previously. They tend to do that, but whenever you cast a lizard spell, the Scorch deals 1 damage to target opponent, so you can see it sort of self-fulfills itself. You bring the lizard spell, does the damage, and that damage allows that lizard coming into play to get the counter. 1 copy of Scales of Shale, because we do need more creatures than anything else. I don't want to have 2 of these in my hand the whole match, but it costs 1 less for each lizard you control. So if you get 2 lizards, then it only costs 1 black mana. And for 1 black mana, you can get Lifelink, Indestructible, and a +2 on your creature. That's a good value. Thoughtstalker Warlock, 3/2, or 3 to cast to bring down a 2/2 Warlock, with Menace. When it enters, you choose target opponent. Notice that means it's built for commander, right? It's not just choose your opponent. It's choose any one of the opponents you might be playing against. If they lost life this turn, they reveal their hand. You get to choose a card. Otherwise, they discard a card, but it's their choice. You have to do the damage in order for you to look at their hand and get to be the one to choose their card that's gone. For removal cards, I've got 4 Consumed by Greed. I stuck with the Bloomburrow expansion for my choice of interaction. They have this gift a card thing with Bloomburrow where you can give the opponent something, some benefit. Sometimes it's a food token, sometimes it's a card, sometimes it's a 1/1 token creature. But in this case, if we give them a gift, we get to return a creature card from the graveyard to our hand. So if they kill Laughing Jasper Flint, we could maybe get it back by just agreeing to give them a card when we cast this spell. However, that hasn't come up so far in my play. I've had this deck for a few days. I think that they did a lot of play testing on this mechanic, and it didn't quite work out. Like, they had to be careful how much to give the opponent to make us be willing to gift them anything. And it's not quite working out. Like, even giving them a card is still, most times, almost every time, still too big of a deal. So I'm not gifting my opponent much of anything these days, but I will consider it if Flint's in the graveyard and I want to get him back. The other copy of removal is Early Winter. It costs 5. You can exile a target creature, or you can have an opponent exile an enchantment they control. I think this is a poorly designed card, actually, because for 5 mana, I should get to choose which enchantment if they have more than 1 enchantment on the board. If they have like a 1/1 enchantment creature and doubling season, they're going to get to choose, and I spent 5 mana to get rid of a 1/1 enchantment creature? I don't think so. That's a bad design. That's a really bad constraint on this card for 5 mana. Bad value. But I mostly took it to exile the target creature, so if they have only a single enchantment out, that gives me an option to deal with enchantments in the deck. And the final removal, Conduct Electricity against creatures only, does 6 damage to a target creature. If they're playing with the Offspring mechanic, I can do 2 damage to a target creature token as well. So that's it. 9 removal cards. I'm hoping that's going to be enough. 1 Valley Flamecaller. I had this in a previous deck with the raccoons. If a lizard you control deals damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 instead. And this is a nice little force multiplier that your opponent's not going to expect. It kind of turns into a death by 1,000 cuts kind of deck. 2 copies of Cindering Cutthroat. When they when you cost an opponent a life point, then it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. So a lot of these you don't want to play and then attack. You want to attack first and cause the damage, and then get the benefit. We went over Jasper Flint already. Frilled Spark Shooter is another one. You get a +1/+1 counter on it, but it's a 3/3 with both Menace and Reach to deal with flyers. And also to deal with flyers, we have a duo, a bat and a lizard. Oh, they're so cute. When they enter, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, but you get a 3/3 flyer out of it. And then finally, the Reptilian Recruiter, a 4/2 lizard warrior with trample. When it enters, if you control another lizard, you get to take over one of their creatures. If this is the only creature you have out, if you don't have any other lizard, then you can only take over another creature if the target creature is power 2 or less. So important to keep in mind. I think what I'll put on the thumbnail is talking about how Bloomburrow was made with Commander in mind, and we'll talk more about that later. But let's cover the lands too. 4 Mudflat Villages. You can sacrifice from the graveyard to your hand. You can only cast the black mana to cast creature spells, otherwise it's colorless mana. For the Rockface Village, target lizard gets +1 and gains haste till end of turn. You can activate it only as a sorcery. It has to be red mana. You can also only get the red mana to cast creature spells, so that's also colorless mana. Again, with all the other mana sync stuff and options, we don't normally get to use this, but sometimes it can play a role. We have 1 Restless Vent, so we can also do a 2/3 black-red insect creature with Menace and discard a card and draw a card. 1 Demolition Field to get rid of their special lands, and 1 3-Tree City, as always, that we can choose a creature type, choose a color, and then cast pretty much using... if we have like 4 lizards out, we're going to get 4 mana for the price of 2 lands. So we can get a little bit extra there. Go through our deck, maybe use it for some mana sync cards. Those are the lizards. Again, not the most devastating deck ever constructed, but they made it easy. You just open up some Bloomburrow packs, throw your lizards together or any animal type, and you've got a legitimate deck. We've got our 1-drop, so I'm going to use the 1-drop. Especially against white, that might be a life gain deck. We're going to have to put in some early work. White and green. Okay, let's deal a damage. Attack and deal another damage. And then actually hit them for 1 point of damage. And this lets us bring out the Flint right away on turn 3. Never mind, they quit. Jan Arrow. Isn't that the civilian name for Element Lad and Superboy in the Legion of Superheroes? You know, I expect comic book fans to last a little bit longer. That was messed up. Alright, 2 wins. 2 wins in a row. I already got Mana Stirred once today when I booted up just to start off the day. And Jasper Flint again, my 1 copy. I feel like Arena is apologizing to me for, like, something. Aha! It's a mirror match with animals. Two in a row. That's what I was doing with my rabbit deck. But it looks like they went all frog. All frog, alright. I guess we just bring down the 1 now. I can't afford to be too greedy right now. I also can't afford to attack right now. Getting down the 2... Oh, and a bristly bill with the landfall. Yeah, we're in big trouble. Yeah, I did mention we won 2 rounds in a row, right? So we're going to pay for it now. Okay, so we deal the damage. We bring down the Thoughtstalker Warlock. We get to see what they have in their hand and make them lose it. I guess we're making them lose Railway Brawler. We'll do this. Did they get rid of the Warlock or the Vine Slasher? They get rid of the Vine Slasher. Okay. Bring that down. We bring down Laughing Jasper Flint. And because these are in the Mudflat Village, we can't play Consumed by Greed because the black mana is only for creature spells, which is kind of why we die here. 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll take out the Trample, I guess. We lose everything. And Consumed by Greed. Arena made sure to deal us just the right lands that we can't do anything. So, we're done. Thank you, Arena, for that deal. Not much can be done when they give you those kind of animals with that kind of synergy. But that's what they did for all the animal types in Bloomburrow. Hired Claw is really what I want. Okay, Fogbank is going to stop a lot of attacks. Well, a lot of damage from attacks. Won't pump that up this time. I'll bring down the Cutthroat, and that'll give me a +1. Okay, we can pay the Offspring cost here. And that means our landfall is going to do double duty each time. And then we do another damage with Hired Claw, whether they blocked that or not. And now, because they got to block the Cutthroat, the Hired Claw gets through anyway. And you'll notice I still don't have enough free mana to pump this up, so even getting all the land that we have, we still could have done more stuff if we'd had more energy. But we really need a minimum of 5 to make everything work. It's all false. So they could destroy my demolition field. And they're going to do it. That kind of did me a favor because I was thinking of doing that anyway. I guess they were afraid I'd take out their Tarnation Vista. What color do I need? I think I need black for sure. It's landfall! Ha ha, you fool! You triggered your own destruction. Let's see. What do we want to do next? I think we just want to get rid of a 0. We want to get rid of a 0-2. Yes. Yes. This is just making up for the Frogs last match. Alright, I'm not sure what's left for them to do. 2 Fogbanks is not enough to win a match. I don't think I have a copy of Tarnation Vista yet myself. They can bring down a whole creature. Sweet. Okay, so if we... let me think. If we attack there and bring down 2... 1, 2, 3... no, that's just replacing itself. Shoot. Alright, I guess we're bringing you down. See, we got land starved. We're attacking anyway. We got 2 of the claws down, so we're dealing 2 points of damage with the attack. They need to get rid of the Cutthroat, so they'll block with the 6/5 there. And that means they're still getting 2 more points there. And I don't know how they stop from dying next turn. They would need, for sure, to get at least 1 more untapped creature down. And I would need to not get any more land still. It's not a creature.
Watch out.
I don't have anybody
I'm
with
on the
flying.
hunt. You have your family. I have mine.
And they don't have enough mana to put that down. What are you doing? Oh, they could create the colorless land, but no, yeah, you need that for defense. We can put this puppy down. And we're done. They can't block all that. So, Mythic Rare, Planeswalker, doesn't matter. Lizards will get you every time. You need like a Bloomburrow mirror match with other animals for a lot of times to counter the lizards. A lot of the regular stuff will still counter these decks. You know, if you get a good board wipe in, if you have a really good on-curve discard deck. I don't think mill decks work anymore. That's probably why I don't encounter them anymore. Although every time people say mill doesn't work, I tend to go make a mill deck and prove them wrong. I just haven't, I'm not encountering them myself. Well, I think we need to be able to get black mana to cast the Ravine Raider. Is our current battle plan. And Mirrex is still proving to be like the most popular non-basic land. Death Touch. Death Touch at toughness 3 can be a problem. And you notice the toughness is light on this lizard too. For 2 mana, you're getting not a 2/2, you're getting a 2/1. The lizards are kind of weak. It's an artifact, right? Not an enchantment. So I can't do anything about that. Nothing to do against enchantments with or artifacts with this particular deck construction I have. Wow. You're going to do that on the Steampath Charger? Really? I'm kind of surprised by that. But okay. We'll do the damage. We'll bring this down as a 4/3. We have time to bring out the Vine Lasher because we got land starved again. Opponent does not miss a land drop and is able to create creatures. We'll stop the poison, that's fine. Someday they'll give us another land. Hopefully before we die. 2 Mirrexes. Another poison. And big nasty creatures. I think it's okay to go ahead and get rid of a 3/3 now. And yet again, due to the land starvation, we're kind of limited in the rest of what we can do. Can't really attack through that. Zopendrel. Okay. So I really need an untapped land. I think we're giving up everything. It's untapped land or we're dead. We just they got exactly what they needed for their land and their cards, their creature ramp. They burned through their entire hand. We've got 3 unplayable cards. And yet again, not due to any special skill on anybody's part, just Arena not giving me any lands. So 2 lands for an entire match. It's kind of messed up. It did it to me earlier. That, by the way, that is another way that you can lose with lizards, if Arena won't give you lands. Why should 2025 be unlike any other year on Arena? They really should tweak their algorithm to not starve us quite so often. That's not... They say they want the game to be fun. That's not the kind of fun that we're looking for in our games. Do you really want your creatures, your players, to just be sitting around waiting for land that never comes? That's your idea of a fun online game. They wonder why they lose competition to other games. And maybe I need to switch out one of the mudflat villages for just a regular swamp so that I can cast the double black spells more often. But one thing that Arena does tend to do is they tend to give you a lot of your specialty lands up front. This is going to be another cheap weenie deck. This is not something that you include with a lot of powerful spells. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. Dragons? Okay, we missed a land drop again already. Thank you, Arena. For nothing. I need 4, really, if I want to get out Steam Path Charger the right way. And I've already got a 5-drop. I didn't include too many 5-drops in this deck. And nothing more powerful than that. Perfect mana curve for them. Yeah, I guess we get rid of that. What do I lose? 2 hard claws. It was actually a castable spell that I lost. Maybe that's okay. How much? Let's see. They're going to have haste on everything that they summon for dragons? Plus Magda. Okay. Nice. Again, they used all their energy, perfect curve, do everything that they wanted. Now we have 1. We can make this indestructible if it's really important. Another hasty creature. This one with ward, which we can pay that cost, thankfully. But it's still going to cost us 4 points of damage. Well, Foundations is enabling Oh, they're going to do that. Okay. You do that, I'll do this. That seems fair to me. I get some life gain out of that too. That's perfect. Notice how they haven't missed a land drop. They got extra mana ramp. And they've been able to cast almost their entire hand already. Must be nice. Get rid of your dragon, please. Oh, this is good. Okay, so we do the damage first. We bring down the gecko. The gecko gives us extra energy. We use the extra energy to bring down our assassin. Now we've gone through almost our entire hand. How does it feel? That they don't care. They don't care. Demolition field. Is there anything that matters for us to destroy their lands? I don't think it matters. Okay, so we bring this puppy down. Gain a little bit of life. This wasn't a cheap deck at all. But notice that they stopped drawing lands when they got their expensive spells they needed. Yeah, the mythic rares are coming at us. And another mythic rare right there. And I think we're dead. Yeah, now we flood out. Thank you, I think. I guess we bring this back, right? And we can't afford to cast it. And we're done. The cheap, fast-moving lizards falls prey to big mythic rare dragons, which, you notice they had just enough of these 1 and 2 drops in their stuff to ramp. They just had like the most beautiful mana curve ever. And I needed removal spells instead of just extra land. Alright, thank you, Arena. Land starving, then land flooding. Could I have a nice curve like they get every now and then? It's not asking too much, is it? Or you can just give me a couple of 5-drops right off the bat. These are, yeah, this is the team of Wizard Spies. Why should 2025 be any different from any other year? The team of Wizard Spies, this was the card that I needed for the last couple of turns, and they didn't give it to me. I had enough land. Instead, they just gave me extra land. Authority of the Consuls already. I guess we bring down Hired Claw now. Not the best thing for us. I think we've pumped this puppy up now. No attacks. We don't want them to double block. Cavern of Souls. It's a cat deck with Roaming Throne, okay? I think Roaming Throne needs to go away. That's all we can do this turn. which I can't be mad at them. I used Roaming Throne in my animal decks. Ouch! It was just a head fake. They got their Cat Lord out. They don't attack? But we missed a land drop. +1/+1 and lifelink. Oh no. We really need that 5th land. They got 6. Opponent is not missing a land drop. Yet again. And they still got something in their hand they can use. Seriously? Evidently, it's either feast or famine with the lands today. Now, they don't need any more lands, so they shouldn't get any more. I think they have a trick, but let's see if this beats it. Hopefully that's enough damage. That 2 extra is enough, hopefully, to take it out. That will at least get rid of the lifelink. Okay. We're definitely gonna need another land someday. Oh, now they're going to get more land. Ta-da! They didn't bother to equip it, though. It's kind of weird. If you knew that you had the land, why would you not equip that? Alright, we block with our 1/1 offspring. We're gonna just throw our little lizard baby out there. They're gonna move that somewhere else? No. Okay. Still no land. Well, you know what? Let's attack then. Eight lands to my 4. No way. that right? I think that's right. Have they been holding on to a battle tactic this entire time? What is this final card? Oh, it's like I'm playing blue. They're taking so long. Are they teasing me? What is going on here? They got the cat deck with the cat card sleeve. They did 1 point of damage. I get to do 2 to them. I lost another lizard baby. It's a land! No way! They gave me a land! I'm gonna gain some life. It's a happy day. This could be an instant that gives somebody hexproof. White has access to those. Or is this where the local Loki throws a fit and takes their toys home? They're at 13 higher life than they started off with. Do they allow me to take a turn? Okay, that's it. That's what we were waiting on this whole time? Helpful Hunter is a standard card for these type of cat life gain decks these days. And just like that, they refilled their hand. They refilled the entire battle board. I'm going to be back down to 4. Alright, so we'll do 6 damage to you. We'll do some damage to you. I guess we're not attacking. They could triple block. You have 1 spell. It should not be taking this long at this point. This is agony. I think they're eating up enough time. This is going to be the final match, regardless. But what I do want to talk about is how they designed Bloomburrow with Commander in mind. For better or worse, the last few years, Wizards of the Coast has gone all in on Commander. They decided, even though it's not the format they invented, even though it's not originally how the game was played, that enough people are playing it, that it's reached critical mass. It was one thing to say, oh, let's design some Commander decks. You know, it's a format, people are playing it, people are enjoying it, let's make some money off of it. That's fine. But in the last few years, they've created this casual play group as well that gets input on the cards. And I think they're last in line, so they get the final say on the cards. Oh, they didn't attack? Well, get rid of Lionheart Glimmer. And we'll attack with you. We bring you down. They get the life back, but we get the extra mana, which we use to make this a 2/3. Life is good. They used a landfall again without equipping this. They could have had a 3/3 lifelinker coming at me. Yeah, it's a little late to do that now. I think I should have lost this match. And so before you have, like, you have exploratory design, set design, or exploratory design, vision design, set design. These are all design teams. Then you have play design. And that used to be, I think, the last group that got to look at the cards before it was pencils down. Now it goes over to casual play, and the casual play group has this very different viewpoint. They have a different mission set than everybody else in Wizards of the Coast. Wizards learned early on, because most of the people's experience with Magic was coming to your local game store, entering a sealed or limited tournament. So whenever they design a new core expansion set, they are looking for your limited experience. They want you to have a good time. So they really try and make sure there's a good balance for the limited environment, including sealed tournaments. And then they also consider constructed. And they build some cards for constructed in the expansion. And now it goes over and the casual play looks at it, and they come back with all these suggestions to say, hey, we want you to change this because this will make it a better card for Commander. And so that's why Outlaws of Thunder Junction had a lot of legendary creatures, and Wizards seem to have realized, maybe a little too late, that maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. We're going to let them gain more life. We're not going to do anything this turn, are we? Yes, we are. We're still going to attack with Hired Claw. Now we're doing 2 damage because of the flame color each time, and we can pump this up. So now it's a 3/4 dealing the extra point. So we do 2 extra points with Hard Claw because of flame color. The damage that it does to it at the beginning, and the additional damage just from being a creature dealing damage to the player. And Flamecast Gecko is kind of a chump blocker right now anyway. That's kind of weird. Okay. I don't know what they're trying to do. We're just going to chump block there. If they'd had this on the 1/1 to begin with and gotten the 3/3, they could throw in and get 3 points of life. We do 1 damage to them instead. And now we have this as an instant, which, I don't know, do we get rid of this? Oh, no, never mind. Finally. And now we just attack with both of those. Pump this up again. And now they're looking at 7 more points of damage. We finally got them under 20. If they'd had this equipped each time they placed a land, it might have been a little bit different. Yeah, this is too little too late. Now we get 4 of their cards. 3 lands. Okay, we'll do a damage there. Why not? Look at the top of our library. And attack with everyone? Yes. They can chump block once if they want to, or they can throw in the towel now. So it was a good game for me, it turned out, but I think you could have had a chance to beat me earlier. It was their turn to get flooded out, I guess. But they had a landfall thing, so normally flooding out is still good for them because they get the landfall trigger, but they did that wrong. So here's the deck one more time. Laughing Jasper Flint, just pretty decent card. Maybe slightly overpowered, but I think they sort of fixed it a little bit because there are other cards where you exile the top of your opponent's deck and you can play their lands, and we can't do that here. So I think that's good and that they limited it in that way. But just Outlaws of Thunder Junction was littered with a bunch of legendary creatures, and of course that was with Commander in mind. Every deck is being built with Commander in mind. The batching that's being done, when you look at this Outlaws, the Outlaws is a batching term. It's bunching together a bunch of other classes that already pre-existed in Magic the Gathering. And it was kind of unnecessary for most of this deck because all my 1, 2, and 3 drops already fall into that batch. So you notice the first sentence, Laughing Jasper Flint, is kind of, it fulfills itself, right? Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries. So the mercenaries are outlaws. And so it automatically makes all of your mercenaries count as far as X being the number of outlaws you control. The only ones that aren't are my 4 and 5 drops. The Spark Shooter's an Archer, the Duo's a Bat Lizard, and the Recruiter's a Warrior. But everybody else already got Assassins, Rogues, Mercenaries, and then more Assassins, and then Warlock, one more Mercenary, Warlock, so lots of Warlocks. Warlock, who knew that the Lizards were so good at having Warlocks? But all of those are already fitting into the Outlaw batch. And I think, again, that was on purpose. The Bloomburrow and Thunder Junction were being developed very close proximity to each other. But then you also have, like, this legendary creature. This is a gold legendary creature. This is designed to be a commander itself. It's kind of overpowered for what it is. It's a 3/2 for only 2 mana, but you also got a benefit. You got 2 different benefits, right? Plus you got a third thing with the war to pay 2 life. I mean, ugh. Wizards of the Coast used to have kind of an unwritten order that they would not design creatures that were legendary at this low of a mana cost of 2, because they understood that in order to make it worthwhile to make it legendary, they'd have to make it kind of better than any other 2-drop. And so they'd have to kind of, by their own design rules, make it more exciting than it should be. So for a 2-drop, this is kind of overpowered. And they used to say that they weren't going to do this. Now they're doing it more often than they used to, where you're going to get a 2-drop legendary. And all the 2-drop legendaries are kind of overpowered, which is going to give you a sense of one of the decks I'm going to show you in the not too distant future once we get through the 12 Days of Bloomburrow. But yeah, that's, when one door opens, another closes. So I'm not sure to say whether them focusing this much on Commander is bad or not. They do seem to have admitted an error in making too many legendary creatures too fast, and they've already kind of moved fast to try and backtrack from that, it sounds like, at least from what they've said. But then this batching, the batching is another thing that they do with Commander in mind. Because with Commander, in order to design regular Magic the Gathering, you can do 4 drops, right? 4 copies of the same card to go in a 60-card deck. You only need like an average of 7.5 creatures to have the synergies pay off and have a theme work. And to get 7.5 cards, you get a couple of 4 drops in there and you're good to go. And here, in order to get the same volume of the same creature type, to have the theme pop up in your deck, Commander decks are singleton 100-card decks. Figure, 40 lands? So out of 60 cards, to get that same volume of creature type, you need to have like 6 to 8 times as much. And there weren't enough lizards, right? So you couldn't really do a good lizard deck without cheating and putting in a bunch of shapeshifters. So a lot of the stuff that they do with this batching is they try and take existing classes and animal types and other creature types and put them in badges and release those in expansions and Commander decks. And that way they can sort of, because they've batched 4 or 5 different types into one particular group, suddenly there's enough volume that you can make a Commander deck out of it. So they say that they're going to try and limit how much they use batching, just because it takes an extra mental step for the player. And if you do it every time, there's going to be too much information. It's going to get too complex. But, we just got through with Zendikar and the party mechanic just a couple of years ago, right? And that was batching. We've got the historic thing from back in Dominaria. You've got this Outlaws, which is batching. I'm afraid that they're going to start using batching more and more often because of the commander pressure. In the meantime, all of these cards are designed. You notice it's not one damage to an opponent, to your direct opponent, to one opponent. It's to target opponent. This is designed for commander so that whichever of the 3 opponents you have in commander, you can direct it towards them. Same thing, Hired Claw is to target opponent. Here, this is defending player. That's a little bit different. You have to choose which player you're attacking. Not too different. Here, this notice is not an opponent or target opponent. This is each opponent. This is one of those cards very specifically designed for commander. We don't know if the casual play group came back and maybe this was originally target opponent, and they said, hey, if you make this each opponent, this will make this a killer commander card. But this is the type of wording in the rules. Here you notice if an opponent lost life this turn, not the opponent. Again, it's always changed so that you can allow for more than one possible thing. Target player again, everything's going to be target. Let's see, what else is in here? Here we go, target opponent again. Target opponent again. Permanent or player. If any opponent lost life this turn. Each opponent, this is another really big commander card, right? Not just an opponent, but every single one opponent that you might have. So if you're playing commander with 3 opponents, then you're not gonna gain 6 life. You'll still gain just the 2 life, but 3 players will lose 2 life instead of just 1 player losing 2 life. And so that type of phrasing, and is this good or bad? I have concerns. I have some reservations just because Wizards didn't invent the commander format. It was invented by judges who were sort of killing time and just sort of having fun in between matches and stuff like that. And they created the EDH, which is now known as Commander popularly. But they were doing it with regular commander cards. Nobody was designing with the commander format in mind. The player base, which made it popular, which is all of us, we went and ran with it, and we started making our commander decks personally before Wizards ever started making official commander products. But we were always using them with cards that were designed for the regular Magic game. Now you have this new tension because there's a big conflict in terms of designing for the product's aims, right? If you're designing specifically for commander, this each opponent thing is not a bad thing. It's for a commander product. But this isn't a commander product. This is a regular standard expansion. But instead, casual play comes in, they're created, they get last cut on the cards, they're going back to these other design groups and saying, will you change this? Because we want this to be a card that's good for commander. And so now there's I don't want to call it an argument, but there's a debate every single time on you're wanting us to change our product for the benefit of a different format. And that's not our mission. Our mission for Bloomburrow was to put out a modern standard set, not to put out a commander set. But commander has so much sway now that they're winning more of the debates. And you can tell in the interviews that are given to the public by the designers, they're always putting a nice, very politically correct kind of answer as to how casual play interfaces with the rest of the teams. But it's causing a lot more discussion and debates internally with the designs of the cards and at a later stage. And this might be contributing to how we end up getting some of these cards that are broken. Because casual play will come back and they're the last cut, right? They're the last design group that gets to look at these cards and they say, hey, can you make this change? And maybe there's not enough time to play test them anymore. And they're just sort of having to do it in their head and say, okay, can we get away with this change? Does it break anything? I don't think so. Okay, it'll pass. And it allows more opportunity for more parts of the game to break. It also means that everything's geared towards commander now, whether we wanted it to or not. If we're playing in the modern standard environment, this is a specific format. Did we really want to have these commander cards such a big volume all of a sudden? It's not really a choice in Wizards' mind because in their mind they're a business, right? They got to sell the cards. Commander has become very popular now, so they're chasing that dollar. They're chasing that money, and that means this is what we have to look forward to. We're going to have to look forward to more of the each opponent stuff, more legendary creatures, more powerful 2-drops, more batches with things like outlaws. These are things that are going to be more and more a part of the regular mainstream game as far as expansions that they design, because the casual play group isn't going away. They've been formed with the mandate to say, hey, we look for the design groups when we're making these expansions. We look at limited and sealed first, then we consider constructed. Now we're looking at the casual play, in quotes, which is almost entirely Commander. So now they've officially got a design group that looks at every single product that they're putting out in the viewpoint, in the eye of Commander. And it's with the company's blessing. I feel like that's potentially dangerous in terms of twisting the game into something that it wasn't. I think if you pushed back on that a little and kept the design a little bit more towards, hey, let's not pay quite as much attention, give quite as much weight to Commander when we're designing the regular cards. And it's hard to tell. It's difficult to tell when you're in the middle of it how much damage is actually being done to the game. Hopefully, it can be controlled. Hopefully, it's just this thing where instead of an opponent, it's each opponent. That doesn't really affect the modern standard game too much. If they can keep the damage contained and limited to that, but then you come into these like 2-drop legendaries, that this is causing inexcusable power creep in the game. And I'll prove that with future deck. It'll be easy. It's tough because we're already trying to guard against power creep, and this is yet another avenue for it to happen. So that's just my opinion. But I'm someone who is playing online only Arena right now. I haven't played paper in more than 6 months, so I'm not playing with the regular cardboard cards across the table from somebody. But it also seems like Arena is not getting a voice. Like this is definitely the online Magic the Gathering online Arena is pulling in money for Wizards. They're devoting some attention to it. Like they're still pouring attention into making the Alchemy cards for the Alchemy format, which is a digital online only format. So obviously it's worth their while. But it seems like there's no real digital design group that gets to have a cut on the cards like the casual play does. And so what about the online experience? We've got some complaints here, and it feels like we don't really have a good advocate. Like the digital folks, that team is just designed on working on the bugs in Arena and trying to make sure that the cards that are designed can work as intended without breaking something new as far as just playing the game itself. And that's the limit of the bandwidth. That's all that they have the time and attention to do. There's nobody on the design really that's been designated. There's nobody looking out in terms of exploratory design or vision design that's got their digital hat on. Not that I know of, anyway. I'm not inside. I don't have secret insider knowledge, so some of this is speculation on my part. But this is what we're looking at. And like I said, when one door opens, another closes. So they've opened the door on Commander, and they've walked straight on through, and they've brought friends. So this is the way that cards are going to be designed in the future. What are the ramifications for the game? And if they're looking in that way and they're designing cards that way, specifically with an eye towards the Commander format, are they closing off their minds to other designs? Are they closing off their minds to other types of things? Let me give you one final example before I leave. The animal types. Most of these animal types are underrepresented in previous Magic expansions. This entire Bloomburrow expansion was set up with, we're going to do the animal theme. Okay, let's choose themes that will help people make Commander decks in that animal. So when you look at, here's these 4, right? Bat, lizard, rats, and squirrels. We've had bats, lizards, rats, and squirrels in Magic before. Squirrels used to be just in the unsets. They've broken out into mainstream, so we can now make squirrels in regular Magic rather than just like, unstable cards. So there'll be tournament legal squirrels, right? But there's not a whole lot of them. So they use this expansion as an excuse to get more squirrels in the game. They had designer love scrolls. There's a couple other designers on the team that love scrolls as well. So now you can make a better squirrel themed deck in your commander deck. Bats and rats we've had a number of. We've gotten more in the last year or two. And Bloomburrow just really piled on to the bats and rats, so you can have a bat commander deck, you can have a rat commander deck more easily than you have in the past. Lizard is probably the least represented out of these four. Lizard had real problems. Between Outlaws of Thunder Junction and Bloomburrow, we've got a lot more lizards so that you can make a lizard deck in Commander. Here we have adding in mouse, otter, or raccoons. We've had some mice before, but we've needed some more. So this added, I don't know how many mice with this one expansion. Otter and raccoons are probably the other two animals that we had least represented. And so now this is all, we're just stockpiling a bunch of animal types that did exist within Magic the Gathering, but they were never able to get enough critical mass of enough animal cards that you could make a commander deck like and have an otter commander and have a raccoon commander. And now they can do all that. Or at least if they don't feel fully all the way there, they've taken a really big chunk out of that problem that they see by taking all of Bloomburrow and making these 10 main animal types. Notice they didn't do anything that they had a critical mass of before, right? It's all animals. But if it was all of the animal or all of the creature types they had to choose from, right? We're not getting more angels, we're not getting more goblins, we're not getting more elves, we're not getting more merfolk, we're not getting more demons. Those are all well represented in Magic the Gathering. They very purposefully designed away from those well-known archetypes to go hit the lesser populated animal creatures, and that's solely and specifically for the purpose of filling future commander needs. And again, it's not that it turned out necessarily bad, right? Everybody seems to be happy with Bloomburrow as a set. So again, maybe this isn't a bad thing. I'm just sort of explaining where their minds are, what their thinking process is, how it's affecting their design mentality. But what about that path not traveled now? What about the avenues that's closed down in their minds as far as other more exciting cards that we could have gotten that we're not going to get? And since I'm running a little bit long, I'll save the rest of that in terms of why we're not getting more powerful cards in Magic the Gathering. I'll save that for another rant. I think I've droned on enough on this. But we'll end it as we always do, right? We thank you for tuning in. We ask you to like and subscribe. We thank our Patreon subject for hanging out with us continually through the months. And we invite you to come back next time. We'll do day 5 of the 12 Days of Bloomburrow. We'll have a different animal type for you. And with that, thanks for joining me, everybody. Have a good one.